Chapter 5. Felicia fell seriously ill a few days after turning 1 year old. She had been a very healthy and happy child before coming down with what had initially seemed like a seasonal cold. It had started with a fever, which Ingrid also thought was caused by her teething. Felicia was up to date in her vaccinations. Ingrid treated her with baby fever-reducing medication and made sure that she was properly hydrated. Felicia still ailed after 2 days of this treatment. Ingrid had to take time off work to take her to the hospital and to devote personal time to her. Felicia got better after several days of treatment and follow-up care, and Ingrid went back to work. A month after Felicia's first major illness, she fell sick again, and this required her admission for a rare disorder, a situation which caused extreme stress and anxiety in Osak and Ingrid. Osak suspected that her illness had a linkage with the circumcision matter, the mysterious things his parents had told him about her birth, the 9 feet tall old woman in his dreams, and what she had said to him. For the first time, he felt strongly that the dream he had was a premonition of what his daughter was now going through. A remedy might after all be found in her circumcision and performance of her reincarnation rite. But convincing Ingrid about them was probably futile and dead on arrival. She would be appalled at the pagan nature of it all and never agree to some pagan ceremony in Africa. Osak had not really bothered to introduce Ingrid to his parents because of their initial reticence in supporting his decision to marry her. In all the calls he made to them and the calls from them to him, even before Ingrid gave birth, he had allowed Ingrid just one time to talk to his father, the least opposed to his marriage decision. The conversation had been short because Ingrid's American accent was difficult for King Ibu to understand. Osak, in retrospect, now thought a relationship with his parents could have given them a chance to persuade her to go along. It probably was too late now to start building a relationship between them towards attaining that purpose. Even then, there was no certainty it would work, more so as Felicia was now sick. Ingrid's motherly instinct would probably oppose jettisoning Western medicine for unproven African remedies concocted by witch doctors. Osak and Ingrid took turns visiting Felicia as she lay in the hospital. Eunice visited her often and practically lived there to help take care of her. Eunice revealed to the couple that the same disorder Felicia was diagnosed of having had once been found in her own mother, Felicia's great-grandmother, and that she had recovered from it to live until she was 90 years old. She assured them that Felicia would come out of it in the end. Osak was not inclined to believe his mother-in-law. This illness, juxtaposed to the mysterious stuff from his parents and his dreams, could not just be ascribed to mere coincidence, he thought. Ovu's plan came into mind again. He felt anew that he could pull it off and save his daughter without significant repercussions on his marriage. The plan needed a revisit and a sharpening of its objectives and execution strategy. Osak called up Ovu a week later on a Saturday morning Ingrid and Eunice were away at the hospital visiting with Felicia. At this point, she had been hospitalized for about a month. Ovu was out at a restaurant with his family to celebrate his wife's birthday. Osak's call had come in as the birthday food was about to be served. "Hello, Ovu. Hello, my friend," Ovu greeted back. "Do you have a few minutes?" Osak asked. "Yes, I do. What's happening?" Ovu wanted to have the discussion away from the earshot of Sarah after suspecting that the discussion was probably going to be about Osak's daughter. Ovu excused himself to go outside the restaurant to take the call. "Ovu, my daughter is down and has been so for some time now," said Osak. "What ails her?" Ovu asked. "The diagnosis is a rare genetic disorder. I've never heard of it before," said Osak. "Osak, all that's going on in your life about this your daughter is unfortunate. But in my opinion, that diagnosis is incorrect. I think she has an ailment of the spirits caused by supernatural forces working with Owa, who reincarnated in your daughter." "You know, Ovu, my mind has been stuck on that belief as well since she became seriously ill." Ovu continued. "The dream you had and that vision in the bathroom were all warnings, and they occurred many months ago. Not heeding to these warnings has now brought you all this grief. I urge you to take quick action to save your daughter, Osak." Ovu's conversation with Osak was another long conversation, and lately they tended to occur in the middle of one activity or another with Sarah, who had started to get annoyed about them. The birthday meal had been served by the time Ovu came back into the restaurant and had been on the table for about a half an hour. The kids wanted to dive into the food, but had to be restrained by Sarah until their dad had come back to pray before they ate. Sarah was not enthused about Ovu's long absence, and she let him know about it. "We've been waiting for you. The food is getting cold." "Sorry about that," Ovu apologized. "Osak calls you at odd times, and your conversations are often long. Is anything going on?" Sarah asked. "There is nothing going on. We are both accountants, and we share information about the latest laws, regulations, and current trends in the profession. Our conversations focus on these matters primarily, sir." Ovu still feared Osak's issues would be leaked to Ingrid. Should Sarah learn about them, the untoward consequences of such a leak could only be imagined. Hiding the facts from her, as uncomfortable as he felt about them, because of the dishonesty involved, was thus necessary. Sarah had a hunch about something going on, perhaps innocuous at the very least, and insidious at worst. But she had never known her husband of 13 years to be a bad person. They had met in college, where Ovu regularly appeared on the dean's list and was also on the soccer team. Sarah, an English major who was also a cheerleader, took a liking to the light-skinned Ovu. She had assumed he was a black American until the day she said hello to him before the start of the men's soccer practice. She had gone to the pitch to watch the practice, but he had a heavy accent, and she asked where he was from, and he told her. She was surprised to learn that he was African, for she thought all Africans were dark-skinned. She learned from Ovu that Africans came in different skin shades. He asked her out on a date, and over time they became very close friends. Uzukwu married her in his senior year of college. Osak spent the rest of his Saturday perfecting a plan to take Felicia away to Africa for the circumcision and reincarnation rite on her. He had resisted long enough, but the threats his daughter faced from mysterious supernatural powers had to be addressed. His divided mind on whether these supernatural powers were real or not contributed to his earlier reticence to go along with what his parents had commanded him to do. Now his daughter was severely ill, and he feared for her life. But Felicia first had to improve to the point of being discharged from the hospital. He could then plan to take her out of the country for the circumcision before she got sick again. Osak received additional ideas from Uzukwu in the course of the next week. Osak ultimately drew an elaborate plan consisting of seemingly difficult to execute objectives and tasks. The first part of the plan involved bringing his sister over from his country to stay with him and Ingrid. The purported purpose of that would be to help care for Felicia. This, he would argue to Ingrid, should help relieve them of the daily stress of having to drop off Felicia at her grandmother's and picking her back up again after work. It would also save them gas expenses. They still paid for the salary of the extra hand who replaced Eunice at the restaurant Eunice and Ronald owned, so Eunice could look after Felicia in the daytime. Eunice could go back to full-time work again, saving them the salary of the extra hand. There were many benefits to having his sister around to care for Felicia, who continued to get better at the hospital and was nearing her discharge date. Felicia came home after a month and a half stay at the Children's Hospital. She was slightly emaciated from all the drugs given to her and the little food she ate as a consequence of her loss of appetite. But she showed signs of recovery because she moved her arms like babies did, whereas she had been quiet, not even crying, before her admission into the hospital. They were glad to have her back home, although Osak worried she could get sick again. His radical plan of action for a permanent remedy was stuck in his mind. Osak was eating a late dinner with Ingrid one night when he decided to bring up the issue about his sister coming over from his country to stay with them. The traffic on the interstate had been particularly heavy going to pick up Felicia, then onward to home, and they had arrived home later than usual. I have a suggestion to make, Ingrid. What is it? Ingrid asked, looking up from her plate. I have thought about the stress we go through with caring for Felicia, taking her over to your mom in the morning and picking her up, and her general care in the home after work and on weekends. I thought I'd suggest that my younger sister come live with us and help us care for Felicia. How much do we have to pay her? Ingrid asked. Nothing. She will live with us. We will only be responsible for her food, clothes, other necessities, and occasional gifts. That sounds like a good deal. Have you discussed this with her? Does she accept? Ingrid asked. I have not, but I'm sure she will have no objections to it. Great. When is she coming? As soon as I can arrange for her visa. Okay, said Ingrid, nodding satisfactorily. Zane, Osak's only sister, was 21 years old. She was dark-skinned and tall, like their father. She was curvaceous and walked with a sexy swing of her hips. She was also a third-year college student studying child education. Student riots in the country had forced the authorities to shut down a number of institutions of higher learning, and hers was among them. She had thus returned to her hometown to be with her parents until school was open again. Zane helped to run a large supermarket in the town owned by her mother during the hiatus from school. Her phone rang one early morning as she supervised work at the supermarket, and it was Osak calling from the USA. She hadn't heard from him for several months. He sent her money every couple of months, which sustained her on campus, and typically called her 3 times per month. But he had cut off several months ago, and the lack of contact had bothered her. She even tried calling him a number of times, but Osak's line had gone unanswered each time. Zane thought correctly that the issue with her brother's daughter in the USA had to have caused a family rift, because Bilky, their mother, complained to her as well about Osak cutting off from her and King Ibu. Osak did continue sending Zane money for her upkeep in college, though. He just would not talk to any of them. Therefore, when the phone had rung and it was Osak, Zane was excited and eager to talk to him again. "Hi, Osak, my beloved brother, how are you? I've been worried about you. You haven't called for a long time." "Hello, sister. I know it's been a while. I hope you're doing well." "I am well. Mama and Dad have been worried about you as well. They haven't heard from you in such a long while." "I hope they are okay as well," Osak asked. "They have been worried so much about you and my little niece, Owa. Please try and call them." "I will do so." Zane knew about the row. She believed her brother and their parents were at loggerheads over, for she learned about most of it from their mother. She leaned to her brother's position on the issues, even though she did not express such to their mother. Perhaps because Zane and her brother were exposed to American culture, and this made them progressive in their views and approach to living. She too thought that circumcision was outdated. She had herself been circumcised as a child, but she found it appalling that new parents in their town in this modern age still approved of the procedure on their girls. She was inclined to crusade against the practice, even starting out from her community, were it not for the fact that she was a princess and thus not expected to lead such a social protest movement. The town, which was ruled by her dad, would be scandalized by such an act. She definitely saw the entire matter through the prism of her brother. But what she had been unaware of thus far was the mysterious and supernatural side of the whole matter, which had compelled Osak to change his mind on the issue and had led to his phone call. "I have good news for you," said Osak. "I am excited," Zane replied. "I want you to come and live with us and help my wife and me with the care of our daughter." "Oh, thank you, Osak. This is a great opportunity for me. I've always wanted to live in America. Thank you again." "I read in the media that your school was closed over students' unrest. You will continue with your studies when you get here." "Oh, thank you again. God bless you. I will soon send you the documents you will need to apply for an American visa. They should arrive within a week by courier service. Let me know when you receive them. Okay, I will do so once I receive them. Zane was suffused with joy at the dramatic turn in her life trajectory as a future resident of the USA. Like her brother, she loved America, and one of the things she prayed for was for a prospective husband who resided in America. Several men from the town who lived in America had returned home to marry local girls whom they took back to America to raise families with. Zane prayed and hoped to be fortunate to be betrothed in this way. Now she would actually be going there as an unmarried woman, a better option than as a married person, because in America she would have alternatives in the choice of a husband. She was happy, but she also hoped his brother would reconcile with their parents. Osak called up King Ibu shortly after his conversation with Zane to inform him of his decision to bring her over to America. King Ibu was happy about that, but he was also upset at his son for being out of touch for so long. Why did you stop calling us or take our calls? King Ibu demanded to know. Osak did not answer. He was calling from his office and had his father on the speakerphone. Are you still there? King Ibu asked, slightly annoyed. I am, Dad. You haven't answered my question. I can't say enough about the serious matters you have continued to ignore. I will warn you anew that you are endangering both yourself and your daughter. The oracle priest came to me several months ago to report an appearance by Uwa and a threat from her to the effect that her reincarnate that was born in America would soon be recalled to the ancestral realm because her reincarnation rite had not been carried out more than a year after her birth, and that the child would be sickened as a warning before they return. Osak continued to listen intently to his father, but he was not the only listener. In the next office, Barbara had heard all that King Ibu said. It was fascinating to her, and she wondered whether Ingrid knew about what Barbara considered strange and crazy stuff she had heard on the call. And this wasn't the first time she had listened to what sounded like witch doctor stuff involving her boss. King Ibu continued, Your daughter will get sick. Maybe she already has, I don't know. But know that you can get her out of her predicament if you comply as soon as possible with her circumcision and reincarnation rite. Osak finally said something. Dad, I'm doing something about it. I won't go into any details now. I will keep you regularly informed as I make progress. King Ibu had the last word. Okay. Hurry up so Uwa won't return. We are honored to have her come back to our great family. Why do you want a black mark on your name as the one who made her decide not to stay? Please do not put such a dent on your name, reputation, and our family. Again, please hurry up. Osak turned off his phone following the conversation with his father to attend to his last late tax filing of the day. The lady had walked in exactly at the time of her appointment, just as Osak concluded his phone talk. From her adjoining office, Barbara processed check payments for mailing to clients. 2 hours later, at about 6 p.m., Ingrid pulled up to the curb to pick up Osak for the routine journey to Ingrid's parents to pick up Felicia. Osak had not been by the curb as he had promised to be when Ingrid left her office across town. It was rush hour traffic, and she couldn't park the vehicle without risking a fine and a tow by local traffic enforcement. She was thus compelled to sit in the car and wait while watching out for traffic enforcement personnel. When Osak emerged several minutes later from his office across the street, the cop was writing Ingrid a citation for standing the vehicle in rush hour traffic. The fine was $100, and Ingrid was upset. Ingrid wore a stern face when she drove off from the location after picking up Osak. He had caused her to get a traffic fine, and she was unhappy about it. Ingrid's face showed displeasure, but Osak knew how to melt away her disapproving visage like hot knife through butter. Whenever he got into trouble with her, he tried to make her laugh. "Do you know how the tortoise got its cracked shell?" he asked her. But she ignored the question because she still steamed from the traffic citation. "Well, I will tell you the story from an African fable." Ingrid was driving in rush hour traffic and pretended to ignore him as he told the story. Tortoise, a cunning animal in African mythology, was invited to a feast somewhere in the sky. As he couldn't fly, he asked a bunch of birds to allow him to ride on their wings to the place in return for getting them into the feast. When they arrived there, and Tortoise asked the birds to wait in an anteroom while he arranged to bring them food. He went into the dining hall where some of the best foods ever cooked were laid out on long tables. He sat at a table and was served extra portions of food, for he had claimed that he had guests with him. He alone ate all the food, while the birds that brought him to the feast sat in the anteroom hungry. A bird spied into the dining hall and saw Tortoise eating at the table, and the heaps of food on that table dwarfed him several times over. The birds knew at that point that they had been deceived by a greedy and fake friend, and they plotted revenge. On their way back to Earth, with Tortoise riding on their wings, they suddenly broke up and dispersed, and Tortoise hurtled from way up in the sky and crashed on the hard earth, shattering his hard shell. It was a funny story which made her laugh. "That was nice," she said. End of chapter 5.